This is Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily with Andrew Hustler Paterson and Michael Remis.
All right, let's do this. Welcome to Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. I'm Andrew Paterson, your host for the festivities this afternoon, along with my partner, the CTO, Michael Remis, coming at you from the command center. 1 day away from playoffs, folks, for the Winnipeg Jets and the Edmonton Oilers. We do have some great Stanley Cup playoff action to get to from last night. Tee up another big night in the league this evening. And, of course, focus in on the matchup we are all waiting for here in Winnipeg and in Edmonton. Jets-Oilers, Game 1 tomorrow night. Dustin Nielson, my partner on the Lock Shop and the popular host of the Nielsen Show on TSN 1260 in Edmonton, going to jump on in about 15 minutes or so. A little later on in the program, we'll go around the league with the big stories from the Stanley Cup playoffs with Stephen Whyno of the AP. And before the end of the program, we'll also check in with our pal Rob Gale. Valour FC training camp is underway. Get the latest on how things are shaping up for the CPL this season and what's happening with the local lads. As always, Winnipeg Sports Talk is brought to you by our incredible family of sponsors, Not AutoCorp, Boston Pizza, Royal Sports, the Nick and Nicky DQ Group, Little Brown Jug Brewing, Assiniboia Downs, Breezy Bend Country Club, Coolbet Canada, and Aikens Lake Wilderness Lodge. Let's get Remo in here to start things up on a Tuesday afternoon. What's going on, dude?
Sorry. Huss, how are you? Feeling good. I'm getting ready here, sending out a couple tweets, a couple Facebook messages. So if you're not following us on those platforms, what are you doing? The links are in the description. But I think I'm getting into playoff hockey mode. We had some great games yesterday. Caps, Bruins, another overtime. Although it ended kind of short. I mean, you get the popcorn ready. You're all settled in for what you hope is a, 6 overtime game. And bam, Brad Marchand ends it early. But I did enjoy the late game. Colorado and St. Louis. You had a nice fight with, a couple big stars.
Gordie Howe hat trick for the captain.
Yeah, and also some great goaltending. So we're just, this is all just appetizer for the big North Division series. Although a friend said to me that, you see all the fans in all these U.S. arenas and you're getting kind of jealous. And you see how much more it makes the, energy, the atmosphere. I mean, Carolina's rocking, Florida rocking. I mean, what's it going to be like tomorrow night in Edmonton in an empty arena?
Well, what's it going to be like? You can check it out for yourself. Watch Calgary, Vancouver this afternoon at 3 p.m. That's going to be the empty arena feeling. Listen, I have no doubt that there'll be a lot of intensity amongst the players. But from a viewing experience, I'm very interested to be able to compare Winnipeg Edmonton to what we've seen so far because, I mean, not only has the action been incredible on the ice for the Stanley Cup playoffs so far, but for those of us that have been watching dead buildings and fake crowd noise, the return of fans to the stands at the most important time of the year has been, almost as great as the awesome action that we've been watching. And no, I'm with you, man. I'm very interested to see how things look different between Winnipeg and Edmonton than from these series we've seen so far south of the border that have had fans, albeit in limited capacities. But, man, you see some of these rinks, Florida and Colorado last night. I mean, yeah, you're putting half the building in, but it sounds like a full crowd, and it's just, I mean, it's such a nice change from what we've been dealing with from the last few years. But, listen, having fans is nice, but having playoffs is better, and we've got it, and it's Jets-Oilers. The West Final, as we coined it, CFL style. East Final gets going on Thursday. West Final gets going on Wednesday. And we'll see what happens. Let's get to the news coming out of the Jets practice today, Reem. And I can't say that it is a surprise, but no Nikolai Ehlers as far as a full contact jersey. He and Andrew Kopp had no contact jerseys. And once again, no Pierre-Luc Dubois for the Winnipeg Jets today. And Ken Wiebe tweeted out that the coach said that both Ehlers and Pierre-Luc Dubois will be on the trip, and he's calling them game time decisions, then added they would more likely be game time announcements, which unfortunately I think it's quite easy to take from that comment from the coach that it is unlikely that either Dubois or Ehlers play in game number 1. And I mean, let's face it, that's a big, big blow to the Winnipeg Jets, who, Remis, I mean, went through most of the season incredibly lucky when it came to injuries. And I know we've talked about this. It's great to be healthy, but when you really want to be healthy is at the end of the regular season when you go into the playoffs. And for Ehlers to miss the last 9 games and still potentially not be ready, a huge blow to the Winnipeg Jets. And it's compounded by the fact that it doesn't look like Pierre-Luc Dubois is going to be able to go as well. And I mean, that's 2/3 of your second line. It's going to put a ton of pressure, even more pressure that's already on Mark Scheifele, Kyle Connor, and Blake Wheeler. And at the same time, provide some pretty significant opportunities for some guys in that bottom 6 to move up and be impact players. I would expect to see Paul Stastny up in that spot. I would certainly expect to see Andrew Kopp given an opportunity to get up there, Matthew Perreault as well. But again, fingers are crossed that we'll see Ehlers and Dubois at some point in this series, preferably sooner as opposed to later, because, I mean, you don't want to get down 2-3 games to the Edmonton Oilers and then welcome your players back and hope that you can just completely do a 180 on the series.
Yeah, I saw someone in chat asking about Andrew Kopp. He did practice in a yellow non-contact. He was on here yesterday, said he was going to play. He took part in line rushes. All indications are that Kopp is going to be in. I wouldn't be too worried. Although I found it interesting that he was in a yellow non-contact. I don't know, maybe just likes the color yellow at this point. And who Paul Stastny was banged up against, in that last game Friday. He told Elliot Friedman on his podcast that he was going to be in. Now, we can say, look, these guys are going to say that they're in, and you can't really take them at face value, but all indications are those guys are in. And the ones that we're going to keep an eye on, it's going to be in Winnipeg the next, 24, 48 hours or for the first couple of games of the series. All right, Ehlers, Dubois, everyone's asking, are they in? Are they skating? Is the yellow non-contact off? And as you said, I mean, a huge loss. I think Ehlers is the biggest loss. You know what he can do 5-on-5. Dubois, I mean, we've been waiting all season for the playoffs. But okay, let's see playoff Pierre-Luc Dubois, because we've heard that it's a different player than the guy that we've seen in the regular season. And he was a bit, got off to a bit of a rough start here in Winnipeg. So we'll have to wait and see what's going on with him. We don't really know too much about the injury. You and Jeff speculated yesterday. We posted that on our Twitter. There was a clip of that. And Jeff was very fired up, and I know a lot of people were reaching out about that. We can get to that, but we'll just have to wait and see.
Yeah, speaking of people reaching out, shout out to everyone that is already with us live on the YouTube channel right now this afternoon before people get it on the podcast. Great to see everybody here. I love this comment from Rob Mahoney. If Dubois and Ehlers are out, I'm changing my prediction to Jets in 5 instead of sweeping. That's what I'd like to hear, Rob. Shout out to Jeff Cabilles, Binaurals here, PDJ NYC. Got Jets 280, Rob Hardenson's here, Brian Cornelsman, James Robinson, videos of Reddit. I mean, the whole gang's in here. Paulo, Manny, Fran. Great to see everybody right now as we grow. By the way, hit that like button if you haven't already. Thumbs up. And if you're just new, maybe a new viewer or listener, hit that subscribe button as well on the YouTube channel and be sure to with us. Hey, just before we get into everything on that, Reem, we had great, we've kind of been seeing the way the numbers go throughout the week. And, usually the midweek is kind of the busiest, it seems. Maybe people have different things to do Monday and Friday, but that was not the case yesterday. People are absolutely ready for the playoffs, and we've been seeing it with the numbers here on Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. But we've got some great feedback on the Jeff Hamilton spot yesterday. And Hammer, he's so good at what he does, and it's so much fun to have on the program to talk pretty much about anything. But people really appreciated his comments yesterday. And he actually sent a text today. He woke up to 10 emails this morning from listeners of the show saying, way to tell it like it is and love the back and forth you have with Huss. And Hammer even got his dad and stepdad's friends group on the show now. Had to literally show them how to get there and subscribe on YouTube. And listen, I know many of you have also done that, telling people about it. And people go, wait a second, how do I get it? What do I do? It is very simple, but we appreciate the, sort of the nudge or the helping hand with some people that are maybe a little more tech savvy than some other people that are trying to get in on the show. But Remo, I know you were hearing it back on the Sports Talk Winnipeg, or the Winnipeg Sports Talk feeds, is that a lot of people are fired up for the playoffs and definitely enjoyed yesterday's show, both with Hamilton and a great spot we had with Andrew Kopp.
Yeah, Andrew Kopp was great to talk with. We did tweet out a couple clips. It's on our Instagram. Those links are in the description. I got an email, from listeners who were saying, I told 5 friends to download it, who got them on. Not a lot, but everyone counts. We're trying to grow this thing, so we do appreciate that. And there were a lot of comments on our Twitter. I tweeted out the video of Jeff at the end saying, hey, you know what? The Jets can talk so much about how they've come together, how this losing streak is good, but let's see them go out and prove it. And that clip got some reaction, and there were a number of people in our YouTube comments. So it's pretty awesome to see. And then one person commented as well on the iTunes reviews or Apple Podcast reviews saying, it's taking a while to show up. I don't know what the deal is with Apple. They updated their iOS, and it broke the podcast app. I know Spotify does it much quicker, and Podbean as well. That's where we're hosted. So, if you're on Apple and it's not showing up, I post it every day, the latest 3:30. So it should be on. I know it goes on Spotify pretty quick. So there are other podcast apps other than Apple if it's giving you trouble.
Get it together, Apple.
Yeah.
It's sort of a big part of your business, that whole podcast thing. Apple Podcast, very popular. Let's make sure that it works. As always, we're brought to you by our friends at Not Autocorp. If you're looking for a new vehicle, why not get into the car of your dreams at a great price with the help of the Not team? You can shop in person at Waverly and McGillivray, or you can go online to not.ca and find out more about everything they have, including an amazing selection of Teslas. And if you're in a vehicle right now that you need to get out of, whether it's a lease or you're just looking to change, talk to the Not experts about their consignment program and help you get max vehicle for your car. Find out more at Not Autocorp, Waverly and McGillivray, or online at not.ca. And of course, now we're in the playoffs. Every night is game night with our friends at Boston Pizza. Now, while we wait to get back into the BP lounges to hook up with friends, have some schooners, and watch the game, in the meantime, we can still get the Boston Pizza game day deal with the spicy pierogi pizza, the meteor pizza, and the case of wings, or the pizza flights, of which I am particularly fond of. You can do it online at bostonpizza.ca, or simply give your local Boston Pizza a call at 925-4110. Man, I'm looking forward to this. And you know what? Speaking of BP, it goes great with maybe after pizza, a quick ice cream run. Nick and Nikki DQ, great sponsors of ours from day one. We've got DQ in Niverville, DQ in Northgate. Both of those operating with drive-thrus right now. If you want a quick in and out, we've got the DQ at Polo Park, as well as the St. Anne's location. And the new Drumstick Blizzard is here. It is glorious. If you have not tried it, you should. And as well, playoffs are here. Why not think about a Jets cake? Check out DQ Manitoba on Twitter at DQ Manitoba. It's Nick and Nikki with all 4 of their locations. You can talk to them online just through Instagram about getting something ordered. But we won't be able to have our big playoff parties. But you know what would make that playoff festivities with the family that much better? A DQ cake. Get one ordered up. And we will be giving away a DQ cake tomorrow. I think we're going to do it throughout the Jets game days with Nick. So we'll have a way. I think we'll do it through our Instagram feed, but we'll let you know about that a little bit later on. Lots coming up. We've got Dustin Nielson coming up in just a moment. We've got Stephen Whyno a little bit later on. And as I mentioned, while we're going to be heavy on hockey, really right through till the Jets are out, we do have some other things going on locally, and we will check in with Valour FC head coach Rob Gale on the upcoming season, the beginning of Valour training camp. But without further ado, let's get right to it. A great friend of the program, my partner on the Lock Shop. And by the way, we just did a new Tuesday edition of the Lock Shop. Check my Twitter or Dustin Nielson at Nielsen TSN 1260 because the new Lock Shop is up for tonight's action, PGA Championship, and much more. And the man himself, Dustin Nielson, joins us from Edmonton right now, 1 day away from puck drop on the NHL Canadian Division's West Final. What's going on?
I'm doing all right, buddy. Thanks for the invite. Thanks for having me. Happy to be here. We got playoff hockey tomorrow. I can't wait.
Oh, God, yeah. I'm, when the schedule came out originally, I was thinking, okay, this is actually good. I'm still, I think, there. I like the fact that we're easing into the playoffs. We are getting a chance to see some of these other series building up to what certainly is the main event for people in your market, in our market here in the PEG. But I'll also say this, the bar has been raised for the level of play, the intensity, the physicality, and the atmosphere with fans in the building. Remis and I were talking about 10 minutes ago, like, what is it going to look like? Are we going to watch Edmonton and Winnipeg tomorrow night, and it's going to feel like watching Vancouver and Calgary this afternoon?
Buddy, the North better come out swinging. It's just that simple. Like, they need to bring the heat because you're right, from a fan perspective, from a viewing experience, it's not going to be the same. I mean, yeah, the guys are going to be fired up because it's the playoffs, and sure, it might be hit, but with every hit, you're going to hear that fake crowd noise still trickling in, and it's going to be a little frustrating, I think, for a lot of people. But I mean, the bar has been set here, and I'm with you. Like, I've enjoyed the extra time talking about the series, getting it ready to go. But the anticipation now has gone through the roof because of what we've seen in essentially every other series. I mean, Carolina, Nashville, it was 2-2 in the third. Like, it was a pretty good game. And then Carolina took over. St. Louis, obviously, even though they lost 4-1, I mean, they brought everything they had against Colorado as well. So, yeah, I'm excited. I think everybody's ready to go here in Edmonton. And, the Oilers essentially are coming into this thing healthy, which is, I think, really good news.
Well, yeah, you'd certainly rather be healthy than be talking about potentially having 2/3 of your second line not be available for game number one, which is exactly the situation I think the Jets find them as they get on that plane this afternoon. I'll tell you, I mean, we were just mentioning to the people coming out of practice today, Maurice said that both Ehlers and Dubois would be game time decisions, and then clarified that with more likely game time announcements. And that, of course, did not inspire a ton of confidence amongst the Jets nation as far as the topic of availability of Dubois and Ehlers goes. But let me ask you this, Dusty. I mean, you're connecting with the people, and I mean, I have been tuned in to the show quite a bit as of late, and I would expect no different, to be honest. I'll put this caveat up. It shouldn't be any other way with the season that the Oilers have had. But the sense I get from Oilers fans that it's somewhere in between overconfident and straight up cocky going into this series right now. Is that an accurate assessment of what's going on there around northern Alberta?
I think if you look at it from if they lose, what would the reaction be like? And it'll be devastating. So yes, I think there's a level of cockiness here. And I mean, it's a combination of a few different things. Obviously, Jets are banged up. Oilers are healthy. Even Cassian was skating on a regular line today, and he's been out for quite some time. So that'd be a nice boost if he, in fact, plays like we know he can in the postseason. But then Connor McDavid, I mean, he torched the Jets basically every single game this year, had at least 2 points in every single outing. But I talked about this, I don't know if it was on my show or one of my podcasts last week, but I feel like both of these teams are being a bit disrespected, Huss. Like, first of all, you got Toronto, who had a great season, but didn't finish that far ahead of the Edmonton Oilers. They I think they finished with one more regular season victory than the Oilers, and the Oilers had the same amount of regulation victories. Like, the Oilers won essentially the same amount of games as the Toronto Maple Leafs, yet they're being viewed by many way below where Toronto's at. And then Winnipeg, if you look at the Jets, and I've been trying to kind of lay this out in the market here, you go back a month, they were fighting with Toronto for first spot, and then they went into obviously an epic slide that moved them down and allowed the Oilers to lock up the second spot. So if it's possible, I think the Oilers are being disrespected by people outside of this market, and I think the Jets are being disrespected by people inside this market, if that makes sense in any crazy way. But I do think that's the situation we're at right now.
Now, I agree with you on all of that, and we've talked about the numbers with the Jets all season long, and that's part of the reason, and maybe we'll get to this right now. We had Pat Gregoire from Coolbet on the Lock Shop last Friday, and we were talking about the upcoming playoffs and some of the series numbers, and he did mention that the book's biggest liability, period, in the playoffs is on the Winnipeg Jets. Now, that might be part of the fact that many of our listeners have become cool bettors, and often when you're going to the playoffs, you'll put a little chunk on your team no matter what, and just kind of hoping for the best, the old self-fulfilling prophecy. But what is interesting, Dusty, that a number, certainly with the amount of recency bias that I think goes into a lot of these things, that made sense with the Oilers at minus 208 and the Jets at plus 175, just literally on Friday when we did the Lock Shop. I mean, this number has completely cratered on Edmonton. Oilers, as we do it right now, minus 154 favorites, and Jets only plus 130. And all of this happening as the injury information for the Jets has been getting worse as opposed to getting better. Was this just a big overreaction, or the book saying, wait a second, Meeple are way overreacting to the last 3-4 weeks of the season? This number doesn't make sense, and we're seeing that in what is coming up at Coolbet when you hit the NHL.
That's what it looks like to me, because I mean, if you're opening up a series at minus 206 or whatever it was, and all of a sudden 3 days later it's minus 154 for that same team, that's an injury of significance for the team that was favored, not the team that's the underdog who's had some issues with injuries right now. So the line movement, I mean, I can't really get my head wrapped around that too much. I mean, outside of just a ton of money coming in on Winnipeg along the way, but I mean, I'm having a hard time this year considering how many times these teams have played head to head to know exactly what we're supposed to read into. Are we supposed to read into the Oilers, taking 7 of 9? Are we supposed to read into Winnipeg struggling down the stretch? Are we supposed to read into that top line from Winnipeg all of a sudden getting it turned around? Are we supposed to read into Connor McDavid simply just unstoppable right now, and you're not going to be able to do anything with this guy if you're the Winnipeg Jets, and specifically that Winnipeg Jets blue line? So it's been such a weird year, man. I mean, these two teams should know each other inside and out. I like Maurice talking about a little bit of his strategy, and then Tippett was asked about his take on some of it, and I think Tip said, Paul's got his strategies. I'll just keep mine to myself. So I like the coaching matchup. We actually haven't got into it too much on my show even. Maybe we'll dive into that a little bit tomorrow. But you got two very experienced coaches here who are still trying to get to that next level in their career, and that alone is a great story.
Well, you know what? And let's look at the North Division. Speaking of coaching, I'm sure this is going to get a bunch of people going off in the chat. But, I mean, I think there's a lot for Paul Maurice to prove in this series. And just when you think about going into this year, Toronto, they could score, but defense was a real issue for them. They've completely turned it around. They've bought into what Sheldon Keefe is selling. And it's, the results show in the standings. Dave Tippett, the same thing. I mean, think about the Oilers when they were the Oilers that could score but couldn't defend. And even we saw some of that early on in the season. But, I mean, the Jets-Oilers series is a perfect example of the way Edmonton bought into what Tip was selling and improved on that throughout the year. And if you look at the Winnipeg Jets, that didn't happen. Paul Stastny said they were sort of cheating the game. That was part of the reason why they ended up going on that skid. They got away from the things that they needed to do. And, Paul Maurice, this has basically been a crash course in, getting back to the fundamentals of the things that the Winnipeg Jets need to do if they want to beat a team like Edmonton or Toronto. And, if they can do that, it will bode very well, and it'll show well on Paul Maurice that he was able to kind of tackle the challenge at hand that the opponent is giving them and change the way they play, or get back to the way he believes they need to play to have success. Because the bottom line is right now, Dusty, you've been seeing it all year long. The Edmonton Oilers have done that as a team. The Leafs have done that as a team. And that's why they were the 1-2 teams in the division this year, and probably was a big reason why Winnipeg didn't have the results that they had earlier in the season in that final month.
Yeah, there was a stretch, and if we want to kind of tie it back into our lock shop perspective here, there was a stretch this year where the Oilers finished under the total in 9 consecutive games, and that was still with Connor McDavid doing Connor McDavid things. But the team and Mike Smith, look, Mike Smith has been one of the best stories in the National Hockey League this year, in my opinion. He's been absolutely incredible. But the team in front of him has played much better defensively, especially since, I'll go back to the regular season last year, but that series against Chicago, the play-in series, they were an absolute train wreck defensively. And I know I had Ethan Bear on my show this morning, and I asked him a little bit. I said, "Do you guys even think about what happened against Chicago last year?" And he said, not at this point they don't, but you can't tell me that as a group and as a coaching staff, when they wrapped up that series against Chicago, they said, okay, we got to have everybody here tighten things up defensively. And they have. I mean, everybody in this market's talking about Connor McDavid being better defensively. Leon Draisaitl is already a penalty killer. He knows his way around his own end. Jesse Puljujarvi has been a very good defensive player and a good addition to this team in their own end as well. But overall, the team has bought into a veteran coaching staff with Tippett and Playfair, and these guys who, it's taken a little bit of time maybe for them to get that message across. But if you're the Oilers, and let's say you're Connor McDavid, and you're sitting there going, I'm gonna be able to produce offense, whether it be 2 or 3 points a game, which is just insane to think, but it's what he's been doing lately. If we as a group just take care of things defensively, almost the offense from the big guys. And I know one of the people, one of the things we talk about here is secondary scoring. Well, if the Oilers can play as well defensively as they have this season, McDavid and Draisaitl on the top 2 lines will essentially look after any sort of offense that you need if you mix in the odd power play here. So Dave Tippett has done an excellent job. And I know, there's been some other better stories even south of the border for teams and coaches and to be in the mix for Coach of the Year. But I think Dave Tippett this year, as far as a coaching job done by an Oilers coach in the 12 years that I've been in the market, it's got to be right at the top. He's been excellent.
Well, for sure. And the bottom line is I think the Oilers realize that, if they don't do this, they'll continue to be a good offensive team that doesn't win enough hockey games. And, that's sort of what the Jets Jets turned into over the course of that losing streak and seem to be showing some signs of life coming out of it. Well, I'll just put this to you. I mean, you guys are banging this out every day. The weight is significant, but what are the big stories around the Oilers? I mean, is there big questions when it comes to lineup right now? Who's in, who's out, how the blue line looks? I mean, what are the things that are not clear that you guys are talking about on the Nielsen show in the morning?
Well, buddy, that's maybe the most interesting thing here is that there's not many. There's not many storylines. There's no, man, what are they going to do without so-and-so due to injury? And wow, Darnell Nurse hasn't been playing great as of late. Nurse has been terrific as of late. I mean, there's 2 things. I wouldn't describe them as major storylines, but one is what they're going to do with Ethan Bear on the third pair. He's going to play the right side. Caleb Jones was there with him for a good chunk here, the final month of the season. Looked okay, makes some mistakes, as you would expect a young defenseman to do. Chris Russell is bordering on healthy. He might not be good enough to go early in this series. I think you'll probably see him at some point. If he was healthy, he would probably be the guy on the left side, but he's not. And right now, yesterday at practice, and then again today at practice, Slater Cuckoo has been slotting in alongside Ethan Bear. And Cuckoo was a pickup this year that in the first half of the season really surprised. A lot of people were very impressed with what he brought to the table. Just a steady defensive defenseman. And then he got hurt and he basically missed the rest, a good probably 60% of the season at least. And then recently came back, played in that last game on Saturday, and then has been with Ethan Bear here for the last couple of practices. So it looks like Slater Cuckoo and Ethan Bear will be the third pair to open up this series. And then you have Adam Larson with Dmitry Kulikov. The returns on Kulikov have been hit and miss so far. And then you've got Nurse and Barry on the top pair. And then up front, the one name, and I'd say probably 10 or 11 of the forward spots are locked in, even though Tippett moved a lot of guys in there from the taxi squad and stuff throughout the year, like a lot of coaches did. But Zach Kassian, who has been out here for a significant amount of time, yesterday he was practicing on a fifth line, if you want to call it that. Today he was on a line with Ryan McLeod and James Neal, which most of us would classify as the third line here for the Oilers. So if Zach Kassian can go, hasn't played in a while. The last time they were in the real playoffs back in 2017, he was a monster. This year, even when he was playing, it's been underwhelming, but obviously a guy with that physical edge that can change a series every once in a while with a physical play, if you're still allowed to do that in the National Hockey League. And so far in the playoffs, it looks like you can. So we'll see how that plays out. But yeah, there's no significant issue right now around this team, which is a pretty good spot to be in heading into the playoffs.
Your little girl Elizabeth getting into Tip's ear to
yeah,
get Cassian back in the lineup?
She wants Cass back in there. She's not too sure because last playoffs he had the chops. This year it looks like he's just got a pretty well manicured goatee. So it's going to be a little bit of a different view. I don't know if she's going to like that just yet, but it's funny with her just quickly because she loves Zach Kassian. Anybody who knows her knows she loves Zach Kassian. When he's not in the lineup, she really doesn't care about the Oilers. But when he's in, she watches every game from start to finish. It's like this weird obsession. I don't know. So I hope he has a good playoff for her sake, man.
As far as the top lines go, we did see, a pretty significant move when the Oilers were trying to snap out of some issues earlier the year where they just said, screw it. We're loading up. We're putting all the boys on the top line. And McDavid played with Draisaitl and, well, the results were, as you would expect, with two of the best players in the world. Right now, it looks like Draisaitl's back with Nuge and Yamamoto. Does that mean your guy, Puljujarvi, gets to ride shotgun with McDavid? And who else is going to get the opportunity of first-line minutes with 97?
As I've been saying for years, Jesse Puljujarvi is the perfect fit alongside Connor McDavid, and he's been locked in with McDavid for a good chunk of the season. It's led to a pretty good goal scoring campaign for him and his return to the National Hockey League. It'll probably be Dominic Cahoon. That's what they're going to start. The last few games here, it's been Cahoon, who they brought in because he was buddies with Draisaitl, and he played a good chunk of the season with Draisaitl. They've just sort of been working him in here with McDavid and Puljujarvi, and we'll see if that lasts. I mean, I think he's going to have to produce. He doesn't do a lot of the other things. He's not crashing and banging. He's not overly great defensively. It's not going to hurt you, but he's not making a big impact there. So that's where they're going to start. And what that does is it does allow them to free up Ryan Nugent-Hopkins to play with Leon Draisaitl and Kyler Yamamoto. And we talked about this last year. I mean, when they were together last season, pre-COVID shutdown, for about 6 weeks, they were the deadliest offensive line in the National Hockey League. Last year in the play-in series, for some reason, Dave Tippett refused to go to them until there was 7 minutes left in the final game. And in those final 7 minutes, they looked great, but it was too little, too late at that point. And then this year, for the most part, up until probably the last 3 weeks or so, he had stayed away from it as well. So we've joked, is he a mad genius? And he was trying to just wait for them to click at the right time again. I don't know, but it hasn't been as magical as it was last year, but it does provide you with a really good second line here behind Connor McDavid, and that's Draisaitl, Nugent-Hopkins, and Yamamoto. And Yamamoto, I mean, the saying, the schneid, he's been living on it for 4 weeks. I mean, the guy, Pierre-Luc Dubois thinks Yamamoto's struggling, Huss. Like, that's where he's at right now. And the guy's been getting chances. He's not playing poorly. Like, he hasn't given up. He's still grinding. He's getting some really good looks. His stick's breaking. Pucks are bouncing off his stick to somebody else who's scoring. But the guy is due for a goal. And if you're going to play with Draisaitl and Nugent-Hopkins and have success, man, he's going to have to find the back of the net, and that'd be one of the other storylines we're watching.
My pal Dustin Nielson of TSN in Edmonton with us here, getting ready for Jets Oilers on Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. Let me ask you this, and we touched on this briefly on the Lock Shop, but I knew we'd talk about it more today, and I believe you were talking with the guys on the Oil Stream yesterday. These playoff games so far have been rough. They've been physical. They've been letting a lot of stuff go. Neither the Winnipeg Jets or Edmonton Oilers, as currently constructed, are really known as teams that really excel in that. How different do you think this series is going to be to what we saw in the regular season? And how physical will the North games be compared to what we're seeing in the other three?
Yeah, I think Montreal will try to grease it up for sure against Toronto and try to get in the kitchen of Matthews and Marner. Might be their only route to success in that series. This one's interesting, though. I mean, basically, it was two guys and a goalie on Monday with Kassian and Gager. We were talking about it. And, Gager doesn't expect much of a physical impact in this series. Kassian, who made a living in the National Hockey League, beating the hell out of people, he thinks we will see that. And I think we might see a little bit of it early. Like, I think you might see both teams try to come out and set the tone early. But let's see if these two teams settle into what they are and who they are, and what these teams are. And what they do best is high-skilled, quick pace back and forth. And, unless there's some sort of major incident, maybe Cassian's in and he does something that he shouldn't, or somebody takes a run at McDavid to try to set the tone early in a series and it kind of turns it on its heels. I don't think this is going to be, the grittiest. I could be wrong. I hope I'm wrong. I mean, I hope we see some of this stuff, but I just feel like both these teams are not built in that way. And if one team was built like that, the other team's going to have to step up. Right. Maybe that's what you see. Maybe St. Louis is going to try to beat the hell out of Colorado, and Colorado's going to have to push back physically. I feel like both of these teams will sort of just settle into who they are, and we won't be talking about, the big time physical toll that these two teams are getting hit with 4 games into the series.
Hey, shout out to Vern Fecta, one of our regulars in the chat. And Vern has just dropped one in. He said, to your guest, Dustin, did the Oilers turnaround start with Tippett's outburst? His ranting and cursing. Now, I don't know if there was one particular time where he lost the plot, but I will ask you to comment on that. But in particular, how did Tippett handle the series against the Toronto Maple Leafs when there was so much excitement? Oh, the Oilers get a chance to run it for first place. And the Leafs went into Edmonton, won 3 games by a total combined score of 13-1. That seemed like a real reality check for the Oilers, but to be honest, the way they rebounded from that has been incredibly impressive. How much does Tippett have to do with that, and was there a turning point?
Yeah, Tippett, for the most part, he'll waste the odd one in practice. The guys who are down at practice every day, you'll see on Twitter, like, oh, Tippett just ripped into the team. But it does not happen very often. And for the most part, he's been pretty even-keeled the entire year in his post game as well. Now, this year, more so than last year, he'll call the odd guy out and say, he needs to be better. But he's been pretty level-headed. And I think that kind of shows that the team has been as well. Started poorly, got things on track, set up that huge battle for first place in the North when the Leafs came to town. And they literally didn't move the needle at all. It was awful. I think everybody was questioning, okay, well, what's this team made of? They can beat Ottawa a bunch of times and they have success against Calgary. And at that point, Montreal had kind of contained the big guns a little bit as well. That's been sorted out since. But since beginning of February, this team has been top 4 in the National Hockey League, and that includes the 3-game slide against the Toronto Maple Leafs. And I think the Maple Leafs was maybe a wake-up call that the group needed, because up until that point, hey, yeah, we've been playing pretty good. We're a pretty good team. They go out. They weren't awful, but they couldn't get anything going offensively against the Toronto Maple Leafs. And since then, Tippett's just had them smooth sailing the rest of the way. And they went on a run there where they won like 19 of 23 or something like that. Like They've been very good in the second half of the season, which goes back to my original comment, how I don't think a lot of people outside of this market are giving them the respect they deserve for being one of the top 5 teams in the National Hockey League for the final 75% of the year.
Yeah, well, a big part of that is a lot of people don't respect the North Division. And
I know.
And we've heard that,
though, right?
We've heard that. And listen, there is certainly star power in the North Division, but one of the things we're going to see over the course of these next couple months is, first of all, who's the best team in the North Division when it comes to playoff hockey, but then how does that team stack up against the winners of 3 other divisions that, have played probably a different style of hockey and have teams that, while there certainly is a lot of star power, maybe not the super elite talents of a McDavid or a Matthews, but teams that have been doing it all season long. And to me, that'll be one of the most fascinating things of this season. Whoever wins the North Division, that 3rd round matchup, how they match up against whoever comes out. Hey, listen, no matter what, you're going to be playing a good team that's hot, that's won 2 tough series to get to that point.
Yeah, it's such a weird year because part of me wants to believe that. Part of me wants to believe that, oh yeah, man, maybe the Oilers and Leafs and Jets just had it easy with Ottawa and and Vancouver and Calgary this year in the North. But look at Colorado and Vegas. They got beat up on California the entire year. Those teams are atrocious. I would say that Ottawa is better than any team in California this year with the way that they played in the final 2 months of the season. So where I think that comes from, as far as the North is brutal is a lot of people south of the border who just see a bunch of guys at the top of the league and scoring and go, well, the rest of the division must be awful because McDavid, Matthews, Draisaitl, and Marner are lighting the world on fire. When this just in, those 4 guys would light anybody on fire in the National Hockey League. So I think it's a lazy take because we don't know. I mean, for all we know, the North is straight fire and they're going to roll over everybody. But I watched Colorado. I don't think that's the case. But literally nobody knows, which is going to be a nightmare for Lock Shop when we have to get into the Final Four betting because you're not going to have any experience of these teams going head to head. But it's just we don't know. There's no answer to that, and we will not know, which makes the Final Four this year extremely intriguing.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, but before we get to the Final Four, we're going to get through a month of North Division playoffs. It starts tomorrow. Let me ask you this, Dusty, because I think a lot of people in Winnipeg are wondering, how do you stop Connor McDavid? And to be honest, nobody did a very good job of it this year. But I think back to, that series with Toronto and Edmonton where the Oilers scored 1 goal in 3 games. I mean, it takes a lot to go in and find the dead spots of McDavid's schedule. But let me ask you this. Of the teams that have had the rare success in shutting McDavid down, what have they done? What have they done in those, instances that the majority of the other teams and the majority of games just simply didn't happen? Or did he just have bad games?
Well, no, Montreal basically just tripped him the entire time in the neutral zone. I mean, that Montreal blue line with Weber and Petrie, and that's why I think that might be the biggest level of concern. Actually, I asked Ryan Rishaug this question last week. What would concern him the most about the Oilers? And that is if, a team manages to contain Connor McDavid. And how the Leafs did it, and, Oilers fans will probably tell you, they were just tripping and holding too. They did a good job clogging up the neutral zone. Like Connor McDavid, if you allow him to have the puck in the neutral zone, you're basically already dead. I mean, you just can't allow him to have speed. Make him dish it off to Jesse Puljujarvi on the right side, and Puljujarvi will usually just fire it in deep and they'll try to go after. But if you let Connor McDavid skate with the puck with speed through the neutral zone, you've already lost half the battle. I mean, you're fighting uphill at that point. And Toronto did a good job with that. They clogged up the middle. I do think the Oilers panicked a bit in that 3-game set that we talked about, and Tippett started sort of scrambling the lines around a little bit when I'm not sure it was necessary. And then Montreal, when they did have success shutting down both McDavid and Draisaitl in the first half of the year, that big blue line that they had there just beat the hell out of them, Huss. I mean, that's essentially what happened. There was no room for them to skate. They got in the zone, and Shea Weber was going to cross-check City. But, I mean, if you allow McDavid to skate with the puck, you're in trouble. So if Winnipeg can somehow, and Paul Maurice can come up with a game plan to do that, we haven't seen it yet. It wasn't executed properly, even if they had one in the regular season. But I think that's your only hope is you got to stop him before he gets to your blue line with the puck, because at that point, there's nobody better.
Yeah, well, we've already seen some of the McDavid compilations of his regular season highlights, and that has been nothing but nightmare fuel for Winnipeg Jet fans. So just looking forward to getting the series on and not thinking and worrying about it, seeing what happens when they actually hit the ice. Dustin Nielson's with us. Dusty, before you go, and by the way, if you missed the Lock Shop, give him a follow already on Twitter, at Nielson, spelt weird, I before E, TSN 1260. Full Lock Shop podcast, which we recorded just before Winnipeg Sports Talk, is up right now. We got some picks for tonight's game, get into the PGA Championship, and more. Before we go, I have to ask you a non-Jets Oilers question. You tweeted about this last night. I was talking to some buddies. What the hell was up with Pierre Maguire rolling the R's on Rantanen? John Forsland's doing the job. There's McKinnon over to Rantanen. Hey, so good. Pierre would come in. Oh, what a shift by Rantanen there. And it happened over and over again. You were not the only person thinking the same thing. As a play-by-play guy yourself, what was that?
Well, look, at first I heard it, and I was just like, is he saying I can't even roll my R's, but Rantanen, or however he was saying it.
Rantanen.
Yeah, good job. See, I don't know why I can't do that with my tongue. But then I tweeted that, and I saw a few folks from Finland because of my passion for Jesse Puljujarvi and Saku Koivu. I've got a few Finnish followers, and they said, well, that's how it's supposed to be said. But for me, as a guy who does play-by-play at the Spengler or Canada West or CFL or whatever, I mean, first of all, you and your color guy should be on the same page. I mean, I've had games where, I know I'm right, but the color guy, I'm not very familiar with him. I don't want to step on his toes because I'm not confrontational. He's saying it incorrectly, so I'll just go with him. So we're not going back and forth because it doesn't make any sense. I mean, if Forrest going to roll his R, then you roll your R's. But you've got one guy saying Rantanen, you got the other guy rolling an R with Rantanen, and to me, it's a bad look from a broadcast, like the overall package of the broadcast perspective. You got to be on the same page with your play-by-play man. I don't care if you're Pierre Maguire or not. I don't care if that's how Finnish people say it or not. If your North American play-by-play man is saying it like everybody else in North America says it, then say it that way.
Yeah, it was hilarious. If you watch the game, it was like they were talking about two completely different dudes.
Which is just, you can't have that. Like I couldn't do a Bombers game and call him Andrew Harris and have Matt Dunnigan calling him Haras. Like, you can't do that. You have to be on the same page.
Dusty, listen, man, it's going to be great. Cannot wait to get things going tomorrow. I know we'll be talking about it. We'll have another edition of The Lock Shop on Friday. And if you haven't already subscribed, just put in The Lock Shop into your podcast feed. And we hit that a couple times a week, talking about some fun sports betting stuff for Cool Bet. And may the best team win. Let's have some fun with it. And I think whether you're in Edmonton right now or whether you're in Winnipeg, barring some sort of real hate that develops over the course of the next 2 weeks, may the winner of the West Final become the NHL's version of Grey Cup champions in a month.
That sounds about right. I think that's what most people in this market. It's not very often that Toronto knocks off, or let's say Winnipeg knocks off Edmonton. I don't feel like all of a sudden everybody in Edmonton is going to be cheering for the Leafs to do the same to Winnipeg. I don't see it, man. So enjoy the series. It should be a good time. Thanks for having me.
Awesome, dude. Great stuff. There he is, Dustin Nielson. Check out the Lock Shop from earlier today and give him a follow on Twitter at NielsenTSN1260. Just looking into the chat. Shout out to Sebastian GR, who just dropped a super chat in for us, asking the question: Kopp, Ehlers, Stastny, Doobie, they gonna play? Well, Andrew Kopp was on with us yesterday. He said he's confident he will play. I would be shocked if he didn't play. If that was the situation, I doubt he would have been on with us yesterday. So very confident about Kopp. Stastny has said he will play and was out of practice today. Two major big ifs, and probably Ken Weed classified them as doubtful today based on what Coach Paul Maurice said. And that's Ehlers and that's Dubois for game one. And that's not a good thing for the Winnipeg Jets. The challenge gets a lot harder if you don't have two-thirds of your second line ready to go up against the Edmonton Oilers. We're going to talk more about the playoffs around the league with our man Stephen Whyno. Just before we do that, shout out to our friends at Little Brown Jug. If you picked up the new summer pack, you've got the new Hefeweizen, you've got the amazing new summer lager. Check out those. And if you didn't know already, you can also order online. And going into May long weekend, Little Brown Jug has a free camping mug promo, which is available up until midnight on Friday. What better way to prepare than get your beer delivered to you at home and get a free camping mug from Little Brown Jug? All you need to do is add 24 Little Brown Jug brews or more and a camping mug to your cart. The camping mug is on Little Brown Jug. It's a 17-ouncer, perfect for your favorite coffee, and a full can of your favorite Little Brown Jug brews. It's available for home delivery or pickup from the brewery, and you can head to the website at littlebrownjug.ca, which, by the way, has just been relaunched. They made it easier than ever to order beer. They've got same-day citywide home delivery on orders before 4 p.m., and it is available Tuesday to Saturday. So get ready, get that free camping mug with the purchase of 24 Little Brown Jugs, and they'll deliver it right to you. Go to littlebrownjug.ca. And a big shout out to our friends at Royal Sports. Hey, tomorrow is the day. The whiteout is here, although we won't be in the building, but you want to get the whites. Great playoff merch available at Royal Sports, as well as their newly expanded fitness section and incredible selection of bikes, which are still coming in every week despite this worldwide bicycle shortage, camping equipment, disc golf. They literally have it all. Get ready for the playoffs and to dominate spring and summer outside at Royal Sports, 650 Raleigh DK and 750 Pembina Highway. All right, let's get to some more playoff talk. Always love talking with our next guest, our good friend Stephen Whyno from the AP, joining us now. Whyno, what's going on? How have you enjoyed the first few days of the Stanley Cup tourney?
It's been fun, and to be in the building with fans, with 5,000 fans in DC last night, that was it. I mean, that was the playoff experience to me, is getting that entire kind of not a full building, but a loud building, the oohs, the ahs, the crowd cheering, the boos at bad calls. It's been, and the hockey, look, even outside of this series, Capitals Bruins, the hockey's been terrific so far.
Well, it certainly has. I mean, you've been covering the league throughout the pandemic. You've been in a lot of empty buildings. Tell us what it was like getting in there. I mean, what did you feel from the fans even before the game started? And I mean, you said 5,000. That doesn't seem like a lot, but compared to 0, I imagine it's very significant.
It was loud, and I don't know if we all kind of forget what a loud crowd sounded like. And I guess this was a little bit of your Chiefs in the playoffs and kind of the NFL limited stadium crowds. Is that 10,000 sounded like 100,000, and this 5,000 sounded like 20,000. Just the energy around the arena, even though you've got people kind of wearing masks and you still kind of have those reminders of a pandemic. Just the fact that you knew people could go to a game again and go to the pub after the game and just that whole kind of community experience. That's why sports exist. I mean, we love it. We're fans. But the whole reason that sports exist and that money is poured into arenas and stadiums is it's a community kind of involvement thing. And from that, just outside the arena and into the game and how happy people are to be there, to just it feels like a real event. It doesn't feel like a fake robotic situation like the bubble stuff. Like I'm sure most of the games up in Canada this year have felt that you're kind of just going through the motions. And I think I probably worked 15 or 16 games in Washington this season with no fans. And to have 5,000 in the building, it felt like an atmosphere. It felt like a playoff game. It felt like what we should be doing with our lives to come playoff hockey time.
Hey, I've got to ask you, just, I mean, as far as DC goes, I mean, is the virus in check right now? Is it pretty much everyone's been vaccinated pretty much? I'm sure that's a big part of it, but I mean, you guys are getting back to somewhat normal?
Yeah, to the point where there's enough of the population that has been vaccinated or literally had this, that the case counts have just cratered in such a positive way that in DC and the surrounding areas, in New York, you see just nationwide in the U.S. as vaccination numbers have gone up, that the case counts have gone down. More importantly, the deaths and hospitalizations have gone down. It feels like we're getting to a sense of normalcy to the point where Las Vegas just announced earlier today, they want a full building by June 1st. You could have 20,000 screaming people in Las Vegas on the Strip at T-Mobile Arena for a Golden Knights playoff game in what, a week and a half from now? That's incredible.
Well, it certainly is, and it's given us thought. I was just talking with Dustin Nielson. We were really focusing in on this Jets-Oilers series. You know, after what we've seen in these first few days of the playoffs, both what's been happening on the ice, the atmosphere in the buildings, I'm afraid that this Game 1 between Winnipeg and Edmonton is going to feel more like Vancouver and Calgary this afternoon than it is one of these playoff games we're seeing right now in the States.
Yeah, I think it's going to feel a lot like that bubble last year, and that the teams on the ice have to create their own kind of energy. Like expect a fight in the first 5 minutes, that kind of thing. Like you could see a Lowry, Cassian sort of throwdown early on, because when you don't have the fans in the building to create that energy and kind of the crescendo starting a game, these guys have to do it themselves. And I think that's the part that the games are still good. The bubble playoffs last year were still good themselves. But you've watched these games, and the game in Florida the other night, these games with fans in the States, it feels different. It feels different watching it on TV. It certainly feels different in the building. And for the players, too. And you hear all the players from the Canadian teams. Andrew Kopp said it today, and Connor David said it. It stinks watching those games and talking to buddies playing in the U.S. who have this kind of audience and are playing in front of fans, because Canadian teams, at least for the first 2 rounds, don't have that chance.
Yeah, it is unfortunate, and we're all feeling it right now because we're still really dealing with this here in Edmonton especially, and out east in Toronto. So we're not there yet. Hopefully we'll get there soon. But bottom line is, while staying home, we've had some incredible hockey to start off with. Let's talk about this Washington-Boston series. It's the only one that's 2 games in. 2 overtime games, 1-1. I mean, we often talk, Steven, about the razor-thin margin between winning and losing in the postseason. I can't think of a series that started off with a better example of that than the one that you're covering.
Yeah, and it's a tip on one overtime goal, and it's a failed clear on another overtime goal. And now the Capitals and Bruins, dating to their series in 2012 that I also covered, have now played 9 in a row of 1-goal games with like 6 or 7 of them going to overtime. It's kind of ridiculous that these teams are so evenly matched. And Connor McDavid said it today. It's like teams know each other so well that it's just you see tighter games because of the familiarity. The Caps and Bruins had seen each other 8 times during the season. The Jets and Oilers had seen each other 9 times. So I expect that sort of thing in kind of every series, basically. But look, the Capitals-Bruins series, to me, hinges on the health of the Capitals, with Lars Eller now hurt, maybe Evgeny Kuznetsov coming back. Is Craig Anderson going to be counted on to start another playoff game at 39? Very good last night in Game 2, but is the magic going to run out? Is the clock going to strike midnight on a Cinderella Craig Anderson story? Because the Bruins aren't messing around, and this is a team that's the 3rd seed in the East, but this is a core group that has been to the final before, won a championship before. Tuukka Rask is a Vezina Trophy candidate goaltender every year. This is a Bruins team that they can pounce on any weakness, and the Capitals have a few weaknesses that might be glaring right now.
Well, and you mentioned Craig Anderson. I will be the first one to admit, I turned the game on, game 1 on in game number 2, in the second period, and I'm looking and I'm like, Anderson? Who the hell is Anderson? And I forgot that they signed him at the start of the year. He only got in 4 games, and we were spending most of our time watching the North Division. I was not prepared for a Craig Anderson sighting and a 40-year-old goaltender getting win number 1 of the playoffs. Give us the story on this Capitals goaltending situation going into Game 3.
Well, let me take you back to a few weeks ago when the Capitals didn't trade for a goaltender at the deadline. And a few of my colleagues and I were joking that Craig Anderson was going to be their Game 1 starter, because these guys have not proven it. Ilya Samsonov, Vitek Vanacek, they've won games during the year because they've a really good team and they've had some good games, but they've also let in some garbage goals and not kind of made the saves that the Capitals need them to make. So we were joking, like, Craig Anderson's there, you might as well play him. And Samsonov is a dummy with Kuznetsov and gets on the COVID list again. And all of a sudden there's an opportunity there. Vanacek gets hurt. Craig Anderson, who just started a game a little over a week before that on a back-to-back, or actually a week ago, exactly to the day of Game 1 against the Flyers, to kind of get him ready. He's in the net. He's been there before. His playoff numbers are terrific. This is a guy who he wasn't on a roster at the start of training camp, just on a PTO with the Capitals. 2 starts the entire year, basically because the Capitals didn't know what else to do. And all of a sudden, he's playing well. And even this loss last night, he made 44 saves. I mean, not a whole lot he could do on a couple of those goals. It's a terrific story that Craig Anderson's playing. A guy who only got a PTO from the Capitals because Henrik Lundqvist couldn't play this season. And now, unless Ilya Samsonov shows that he is kind of back in shape and able to play again, I think this is Craig Anderson's net until the Capitals are done.
It's such a wild story. I mean, one of the other stories within this series, of course, is Zdeno Chara. I mean, playing against his old team, round 1 of the playoffs. I'm not sure how much he spoke during this series or the lead up to it, but what have you heard from Big Z, and what must this be like for him going against the team that he played the majority of his career and had his greatest highlights with?
He's in playoff Zdeno Chara mode, where it's not about me against the Bruins, it's the Capitals against the Bruins, and all of those things, that he's saying the right things. But I do think there's something there. This guy played 73 home playoff games with the Bruins from 2008 through until the bubble. So Game 7 of that Cup final in 2019, where he gets this close to raising the Cup in Boston with the Bruins, and literally, and probably got disrespected by the organization, of them saying, we don't want you as a regular, that we've got younger guys we want to play. And after being captain for 13 years, got shown the door of hey, you can be a part-time player or you can leave. So I don't know that he'll ever say this or if this is really a motivating factor for him, but maybe part of him's got to think, this is a team that I gave most of my career to, and they didn't want me back. And if that's not a motivation for a guy who's 44 years old now and left his family back in Boston to go join another team and another challenge, I don't know what is.
The crazy thing about Chara is that he's 44 and he still seems to have it.
Yeah, he can still play. And he's not a top pairing guy anymore. He's not a Norris caliber defenseman anymore. But he is a very solid top 6 defenseman. He does what you need him to do. He can kill penalties very well. He very rarely makes the wrong play. Are there times he looks slow and old? Yes. There are shifts in the game where he does look that. But he's never going to make the kind of boneheaded mistake that other defensemen in the NHL who are years younger will make. His hockey sense is still through the roof. He's got this work ethic that everybody knows of how much he likes to work out and stay in shape. The physical part isn't a problem for him. The mental part certainly isn't a problem for him. And look, I wouldn't be surprised if he plays another season next year.
Yeah, no, I mean, listen, watching him in the playoffs right now, and he still seems to love the game and wants to do it. Certainly there'd be a spot for it. Stephen Whyno with us from the AP, talking Stanley Cup playoffs. Let's get to this Battle of Florida. I mean, that game number 1 between Tampa and the Panthers was so good. I mean, I said to some buddies the next day, I'm like, if we get 2 or 3 games in this entire playoffs that are better than that, we will be very lucky. What'd you think about the start of that series, the win for Tampa, and the challenge for the Panthers with Chris Driedger, Manitoba's Chris Driedger, in the net tonight, looking to even up this series?
Yeah, you talked about kind of the razor thin margin between teams. That's what that Panthers Lightning series turned on, that Sam Bennett penalty that turned into the suspension, and you just see little parts of that game that the Panthers could have won that game. I mean, you see the goal by Huberdeau was incredible, the speed of that game, and they're just beating the hell out of each other. It is just in the way that, like, that's what makes hockey great. It's not necessarily, you don't need fights for intensity and for brutality. These guys were hitting each other and finishing checks, and they played each other twice in the previous week for home ice advantage. Florida gets it and then misses an opportunity. That if the Panthers lose this game tonight and you go to the defending champs with a half full building in Tampa, you're in trouble. And so I think there's a sense of urgency now that created by that game 1 that wouldn't have been maybe the other way around. And so you're starting to see kind of the playoff narratives come in. 2 Stanley Cup winning coaches, Quenneville against Cooper. The chess match now, is Driedger the guy in goal to change the series? Are there adjustments that the Panthers can make without Sam Bennett in the lineup now for game 2 to kind of get at the Lightning, who are stacked? I mean, even without Barclay Goodrow in the lineup, this is a stacked, very deep, talented team that just got Nikita Kucherov back after not playing all season. I mean, what a heck of a trade deadline acquisition to add for the playoff.
Speaking of that, Whyno, yeah. I mean, I know you're talking with people around the league all the time. Of your non-Lightning NHL contacts, how angrier people are about the way things have just sort of happened to work out for the defending champs when it relates to Kucherov and now Stamkos?
I think there's a little bit of frustration about the using of the loopholes, but it's not necessarily at the Lightning. It's at the loopholes existing, if that makes any sense. Just that, like, the league could say, we're going to keep the cap for the playoffs. Like, you could just have that rule in place that you have to be cap compliant for the entire playoffs, and this wouldn't be happening. But if you did that, then Vegas might not be icing a full lineup, or Washington. Both these teams had dressed either 15 or 16 skaters during games late in the season because of salary cap problems. So you don't want to throw stones from a glass house. And I think every general manager and team knows that could be them at some point. That if it's whether it was Vladimir Tarasenko potentially needing something like this, or other teams where guys get hurt, and you're like, look, they probably will be out the whole year or most of the year, and you're going to use the cap to as much of your advantage as you can. To me, I think it's brilliant. Honestly, if you know Nikita Kucherov isn't going to injure himself and can stay in shape and be able to play game 1, I'm all for Julian Breesbaugh and the Lightning taking advantage of the rules as they're created. You can't punish a team for playing by the rules as they're made and getting a guy back who at this point is healthy and legal to play.
Whyno, is this a must-win for Pittsburgh tonight?
Yeah, I don't think as much as it is for Pittsburgh as it is for Florida. I think the Panthers need to win that game before going to Tampa. I think the Penguins should want to win against the Islanders to not put themselves in a hole. The difference is the Penguins are even with kind of the changes in the lineup there, you still have a Stanley Cup winning coach in Mike Sullivan. You still have Crosby. If Malkin comes back, you still have Letang. This is a core that has been there before. Jeff Carter has been on a Kings team that erased a 3-0 deficit and won a playoff series. So these guys, it's not like they're going to panic. and this is something that Brad Marchand said last night about the Bruins, is that this is a team that doesn't panic down in games, and the Penguins are certainly a team that doesn't panic down in a series. But if you're Tristan Jarry in net for Pittsburgh, and you're the team around him, you want to see something out of him, maybe not give up a horrendous goal late in the third period, and kind of have him build up some confidence, because that was the Penguins' question mark going into the year. I was wrong. I thought the Penguins would miss the playoffs because of goaltending, but it may turn out, if Jarry doesn't find his game, that the Penguins are going to be out of the playoffs because of goaltending. And to me, the result is important, but I think Tristan Jarry finding his game, even if it's a close loss, is more important long-term to the Penguins in this series.
Is there any scar tissue from the Penguins for recent playoff failures? I mean, certainly there was last year in the bubble. And let's not forget a 4-game sweep to the hands of the Islanders the time before.
How many, but how many teams haven't had scars? Like in a good way. Like, I mean, Tampa Bay had the scar of that Columbus sweep and came back and won the Stanley Cup. I do think there's some scarring there, but that the Penguins are a veteran enough team to use it in a positive way and not in a, oh, here we go again way. The Edmonton Oilers might be a team that goes the other way. That's a younger group that, after the disappointment in the bubble and not being in the playoffs before that, other than that run to the West Final when they lost a few years ago, that the second round, that the Oilers might go the other way. I think Pittsburgh is a team that Crosby can say, yeah, I've been there before. Evgeny and Chris and I have been there. We've done this before, and that we know the difference between winning and losing. And this team has what it takes to kind of erase that. You've seen almost every team that has gone on to win the Stanley Cup or go on a long run has had some of that brutal losses, whether it's the Capitals just losing in the second round every stinking year to the Penguins or somebody or whatever. The Leafs are dealing with that question right now. If the Penguins can harness that, if Sidney Crosby is the captain and leader that everybody thinks he is, myself included, then I don't think that's going to be a concern for them. Yeah,
well, no, very interested to see how this game goes tonight, because the one thing Barry Trotz has been able to do is beat the Penguins in the playoffs. And, they had, the Islanders are an interesting, and I'll kind of segue this back to the North Division. There was some similarities between the Islanders and the Jets. Both had really strong first 3 quarters of the season. And, the Jets had a disappointment at the trade deadline, not being able to get the guy they wanted, and then managed to, somehow lose 7 games in a row. The Islanders got the guys they wanted. They did nothing. They didn't win many games. And yet there was Kyle Palmieri scoring the OT winner. Better late than never for that. But as far as the Jets go, and the Oilers, I know you spent probably a lot more time focusing in on the East Division covering, but, what are your thoughts about this series before we drop the puck tomorrow night? A big task for Winnipeg going up against a guy that consistently torched them and the rest of the NHL. Of course, I'm talking about Connor McDavid.
Yeah, well, one of the positives about our all Zoom world is I've been on every Oilers and Jets interview for the past few days and just kind of listening to what the thoughts are about the series, and give Connor McDavid and the Oilers credit that for all the talk about wanting to shut him down and Draisaitl down, he's like, no, the Jets have a deep group of forwards too. And it's hurt by Pierre-Luc Dubois and Nikolai Ehlers unlikely kind of playing in game 1. But you even heard Paul Stastny and the Jets yesterday talking about they know how to switch up power play units and lines when they get guys back. I think they anticipate getting Dubois back, getting Ehlers back. This is a group of forwards that can do some damage in the playoffs. This is a better blue line than a year ago. This is 2 teams that both got bounced in the qualifying round of the bubble last year. But Connor Hellebuyck, as much as Jets players don't want to say it, is the X factor of this series. And Connor Hellebuyck, unlike other goalies, unlike Mike Smith, who said yesterday he's not putting pressure on himself to steal games, Connor Hellebuyck may have to steal a game or 2 in this series. There's no doubt that the Oilers are favored in this series. But this is not a lopsided thing to me. This is not an Oilers are going to roll over the Jets to me. I've liked the Jets to come out of the North from the start of the year. They've been my pick to get out of the North Division because of Paul Maurice, because of Connor Hellebuyck, and that group of forwards that has learned enough of those lessons that they've made that run to the Western Conference Final in 2018 and have been there before. I think it's a long series that if Mike Smith somehow implodes, which he's done before, that the Jets can absolutely win this series.
What about the other one? Montreal, Toronto. Leafs a huge favorite, but as you mentioned, you want to talk about scar tissue and expectations and pressure. I'm not sure that it's more so in any other market than it is right now this year in the All-Canadian division for the Toronto Maple Leafs.
And let me argue that there is no team right now, in my opinion, that benefits from no fans in the building more than the Toronto Maple Leafs. And I'll tell you this, from experience in Washington, all those playoff years when they lost in the first or second round, they would give up a goal early in the game, and the whole crowd would just go. And it would just, like, the energy would come out of the building like it popped a balloon. And I think with all the Leafs playoff failures in the recent past, that not having that kind of energy up and down of a crowd might benefit the Leafs more than anybody, because they'll be able to, as an older group with a Joe Thornton, a John Tavares, those kind of guys on the bench, keep a composure that would be harder to keep, in my opinion, if you had fans there. And of course, I think everybody on that team would rather play with fans in the building. I'm not trying to say that. But given the situation that those four Canadian teams are in, I think the Maple Leafs playing in empty buildings, not going into a crazy Bell Center, not having kind of maybe a nervous home crowd in Toronto, could have a significant benefit for a team that I think just needs to get over the hump, like the Capitals did in 2018, to do something special.
Well, do you give the Habs much of a chance in the series, though?
I mean, it is a playoff series, and the Habs played the Flyers tough last year. I don't. I honestly would be stunned out of my mind if the Canadians win this series. I would. This is the series. Everyone else in North America talking about Edmonton, Winnipeg like this, that it's McDavid's going to roll over them and this and that. I think the Leafs are a much better team than the Canadians. I think there should have been 3 North Division teams in the playoffs to begin with, and that Dallas should have gotten in instead and gone and played the Leafs and given them a series. But no, I don't give Montreal much of a chance. But hey, I've been wrong before, and Carey Price might make me look like a fool in 2 weeks.
Hey, just on the way out, Avalanche the team to beat, or who did you peg for the Cup?
Yeah, the Avalanche are the team to beat, and I took Colorado over Carolina in the final going into this. And nothing I've seen out of these teams so far leads me to believe anything differently. The only thing for Colorado is don't get Philip Grubauer hurt. This is a team in Colorado with arguably the best player in the playoffs, other than Connor McDavid and Nathan McKinnon, who is on a mission to do something in the playoffs. If Philip Grubauer gets hurt and it's Devin Dubnyk or Jonas Johansson in net, then all bets are off. But I think the Avalanche are the most talented team. Joe Sakic has fixed every potential weakness along the way, including having depth in goal that's better than Michael Hutchinson getting thrown in there. Colorado is the team that, unless something goes catastrophically wrong or Philip Grubauer gets hurt, I just imagine Gabriel Landeskog lifting the Stanley Cup probably on the 4th of July in Denver.
Whyno, great to catch up, man. Enjoy these playoff games. We can't wait to get going tomorrow night, and hopefully we can do this again later on as we continue the quest for the Stanley Cup.
Thank you, sir. Enjoy the playoffs.
Take care, pal. There he is, Stephen Whyno. Give him a follow on Twitter, @SWhyno, covering the National Hockey League for the Associated Press. We are going to step away from hockey for a few minutes and check in on Valour FC with Rob Gale in just a minute. But I will remind you that 6 days from today, we'll have a late Jet game. 8:45 p.m. is the start time for Game 4. But before then, you'll be able to get ready. Maybe take your mind off the game by throwing down on the ponies at Assiniboia Downs. Because it is opening day. It was supposed to be yesterday. They had to push it back a week. Opening day, live racing gets going next Monday. Unfortunately, with no fans. But you can sign up for an account right now at hpibet.com. You can bet on races from all around the world, but most importantly, bet and watch the races from our track at Assiniboia Downs beginning on Monday. And of course, on the ASD website, you can also check out McCurk Contois, who joined us, as well as Marshall and Stretch, giving picks before every night of racing, 6:45 with the ASD live show before every one. Thanks again to Assiniboia Downs for their support. And give a quick shout out to our friends at Breezy Bend Country Club. Course is in immaculate condition. course, Superintendent Craig, an absolute all-star over there. But we've got some golf to talk about this week as well for Breezy, and that, of course, is the PGA Championship. Made a few picks today with Dusty on the Lock Shop. You can check that out afterwards if you'd like. Going to be doing another preview tomorrow with Pat Gregoire on the CoolBet social feeds. And I know our main attention is going to be on the playoffs through these nights, but man, it's going to be great to have a big boy major at Kewah Island in South Carolina getting going. Rory McIlroy is the favorite at 12-1 right now. He, of course, won in 2012 at this course by 8 strokes, and is coming off a win after a real lean time for Rory. So he is the betting favorite going in. And a big shout out to our friends at Aikens Lake Wilderness Lodge. If you're looking for an amazing vacation inside the province, a world-class fly-in fishing lodge that you can be on the water in about 2 hours from the city of Winnipeg. Normally, this entire month is booked solid with American tourists. Not happening this year because of the borders. So find out more, aikenslake.com, or check them out on Twitter at aikenslake, and that maybe we'll see you up there at some point this summer. So listen, great stuff. We've been talking a lot of hockey, obviously, because we've got game 1 of the playoff tomorrow, but it's an exciting time for local soccer fans and probably our next guest more than anybody, because Valour FC, the lads are on the pitch. Training camp is underway. We're going to have a season in the CPL, and that means we welcome back Valour FC head coach Rob Gale to Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. What's up? How are you doing, my friend?
So are you, buddy? I am doing well. The sun is shining. As you say, the lads are on the pitch. Life is good.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it could be better around here. We could have fans in buildings. But we're getting closer. We're getting the shots out. And I think we are, as a community, seeing that hopefully there is a light at the end of the tunnel. Fill us in on the squad right now. I mean, even before, training camp's just begun. Since we last spoke, there were so many things that were sort of up in the air that, we really didn't have answers to. It sounds like there have been answers. We've got a plan for a season, and you got players here in Winnipeg. How did it all come together, and what do people need to know?
What do they need to know? Bubble start, probably start of July, end of June at the earliest. Most importantly, a full season this year. We're not doing what we did last year with just a bubble and 7 games and done. It's going to be 4 times that, so a full season, balanced schedule, 28 games. We don't know where that bubble will be right now, or the exact start date, but obviously, as you said, with all development and vaccines and cases hopefully going back down, that we'll get to fans in the stands somewhere before the end of the season as well, mate. So training camps began, 24 players out right now, 3 in quarantine that will get out soon, couple more signings to come. So it's taking shape, buddy.
Well, that was what I was going to ask you, because when we last spoke, there were a number of Valour players that weren't here in Winnipeg. What went into getting them here? What did they have to go through, and how close are you to having all of your signed players participating in camp?
We're getting closer, and look, anybody who's been out of the country or worked in different provinces knows the restrictions, the intricacies, the difficulties in trying to come back into Manitoba and get into work. So we've had players from all over the world. Some have had to go through additional countries to get here on the fly list. Others have come into the province after quarantine for 2 weeks. Pass all the COVID tests. We're still doing screenings, daily temperature checks. We all got pre-tested last week. We got rapid tests coming. So we're doing everything we can, number one, for the health and safety of all participants, and again, to be good citizens of Winnipeg and Manitoba, to make sure that we're mitigating all risks and not going to spread this terrible virus.
Hey, let me ask you this, just a logistics question as we deal with everything that's being thrown at you. So I'm a player from somewhere in Europe or Africa. I've never been to Winnipeg before. I sign with Valour FC. I show up in Winnipeg. I'm thrown in a hotel for 2 weeks. Like, how are these guys getting by? Is there like a team services person that's like dropping food and stuff off to them? Because that's got to be crazy. You're halfway around the world in a new environment and essentially locked up for 14 days before you can do anything.
Yeah. I mean, I wish we had a team services person, mate. We're not quite at that level as a club, but between ourselves, Kelly Cowell, Chuck Tanner in the Bombers office, Damien, myself, Patrick, the technical staff, support staff, we've had to get some groceries to people. They've done hotel bookings, like you say, trying to get them exercise equipment so that they're not, it was like that Australian tennis tournament when everyone's smashing balls off the walls and keeping themselves fit. I mean, it's very difficult, mate. Anyone who's travelled will know the challenges. And then finally, once they've passed all of those things, some of them it's taken a month's process, longer with visas, to finally get them out on the field and out in that collective and just the banter and the group again. Obviously, with social distance as much as possible, warm-ups, cool-downs, all of that is spread out. And we got the glorious IG Field as a sort of theatre of dreams every day, mate, that makes all of that hassle and all of the waiting worthwhile once you all get together again.
Rob Gale's with us, head coach of Valour FC. How's the squad looking? You've got some new exciting players, and I'm sure you're still working on it because the job's never finished, right, when you're running a club?
Never done, mate, and you get little curveballs thrown at you. We lost a couple of the foreign lads because they can't get their visas in time, and the processes, embassies, everything is taking that much longer. But, 15 of the signed players are out of quarantine. Like I say, we got 3 more coming. Arnold still to come in from France. And then those last 4 spots, we got 3 U Sports players on trial, 2 from the University of Saskatchewan, local lads. We've got 4 local players in on trial and a couple boys who have come recommended to us that we knew from year 1 or are new to Canada but have become Canadians. So it's exciting. Like you say, good dynamic. Sean Reyes come in from Montreal Impact. He looks a terrific talent. We still got Kevin Alleman, who's a Canadian international, William Akio, an NCAA standout. So we got a lot of exciting, dynamic young players that are coming in with the core that we had from last year and the leadership group and everything that we were really happy with. So it's coming along. The fitness is a bit all over the show, mate. It's a bit like you and me going out for a run at the same time. Some are at different levels. But
was that a shot, Rob? I believe it was.
It's my own conditioning, mate. I was having to dig out, not yours. You're a machine.
Right. Best case scenario, I mean, do we know how long camp is? And is there a target date for when this bubble would start? And do we know where that bubble would be?
There's 5 or 6 options on the table. And really, look, I think at one stage, Halifax was an absolute front runner. At one stage, we were a probable front runner. And obviously, it's up to the chief medical officers and how well the community is doing with the spread of the virus, obviously. But they've committed to mid-June. I think Canada Day would be a latest to be able to get 28 games in before, it's snowmen for goalposts in November and we're struggling to see the fields, orange balls and luminous lines on the field. So we're thinking July 1st, a Canada Day kickoff ideally, because that gives us 6 weeks. It may be a little bit earlier. And I think once a community and the government and the chief medical officer is willing to sign off on it, then it'll be announced and we'll be ramping up.
Hey, Rob, before we go, I saw a couple of the Red River Rising folks tweeting yesterday about the excitement of camp getting open. I mean, it's a weird situation. You had the great first season, then it was the bubble. Now we won't have fans right now, but I know you're feeling the support from the fans of Valour FC. Any message to them about what's to come and I guess basically just to hang tight and, what they can do to support in the meantime?
Yeah, man, do we love these guys, and they're so good. And it goes to them supporting local businesses like the King's Head, Nicolino's, our supporters, our sponsors. They've had events. We've zoomed in on events over the winter to stay in touch with them. They did a season end awards. They've been with us through thick and thin, and a lot of thin really over this last year and a half and not being able to see us play. Last year, they came to sing at a training session, couldn't even see. They were outside the gates. But we love those guys. We're building a squad that we know they're going to be proud of and excited to come and see play. So we just got to keep doing the right things, Manitoba, get shots in arms, get people healthy again, above all, everything, right? We've lost over 1,000 lives, mate, and we can't lose sight of that. It's been a terrible time, but hopefully look, return of sports, talking football, talking the beautiful game with you, mate. It feels like things are getting back to normal, and fingers crossed we'll be bouncing up and down with the trench, spilling their pints as we score a few goals, and life feels good again.
That's what I'm talking about, Gailey. Listen, great having you on the program. Best of luck to you and the squad as you get going with training camp, and we'll certainly be in touch as the information becomes more clear, and we will keep those fingers crossed that we will be jumping up in the trench at some point this season with the rest of the crew supporting Valour FC. You be well, my friend.
Top dog, you too, mate. Look after yourself. Thanks for having us on.
You got it. There he is, Rob Gale, head coach of Valour FC. Give him a follow on Twitter at Gailey77. And of course, if you're not already, follow Valour FC and stay up to date on all the latest information. And if you never got a chance to go in year one, I was a regular at the games. It was so much fun. You have to get out there. Now we just got to do what we got to do to get to that point so we can get back to the park, cheer on the lads, and hopefully do the same thing with our football team, our baseball team, and by next season, hopefully back in an indoor rink supporting the hockey team. Let's get Remis back in here because Reem, great stuff with Whyno, with Dustin Nielson, and with Rob Gale. And we will get to the cool bet numbers for tonight's NHL playoffs in just a moment. But, Valour FC is not the only local squad that's getting going. Tonight, Remo, is Goldeyes opening night, unfortunately, far, far away from Winnipeg in Jackson, Tennessee.
Yeah, that's so awesome. I'm so happy that the Goldeyes were able to find a home. I'm also happy for Jackson, Tennessee, who lost their minor league affiliate. They have a team there now that fans can go and watch. So I think this is a win-win. As we know, there's a lot of upheaval in minor league baseball, a lot of contraction of teams. So I think that's a benefit for both. We talked to Andrew Collier. They were very excited about it. And, I know you can follow them online. There's people in chat. So the Goldeyes getting going. They'll have a permanent home. And, I know last year was real tough for them being in Fargo, being the road team for every game. Not an ideal situation. And, again, I think this is less than ideal. I mean, I heard Kyle Lowry talking about the season playing for the Raptors in Tampa. But, for the Goldeyes, I'm pumped to see it. So we'll be following along their games. I know American Association doing a great job on their website and the Goldeyes as well on social media just giving all the updates with the squad.
Yeah, no, they are doing a great job. And if you go to goldeyes.com, you can watch the games. You can click in to hear Steve Schuster do a great job calling the games. And that's something I love to do. I mean, on these nice nights, we did it quite a bit last year, actually, when there was literally nothing going on. And the Goldeyes were the first sort of team playing at all. Just fire up the radio, listen to Schuster call the game, and give us some of what we love to do in summer, even if we can't get to the ballpark. And as we said, we had Andrew Collier, GM of the Goldeyes, on last week. They're optimistic at some point this team might be able to return. I think it's unlikely that it would be this season just because of where we're at in the calendar. The season's getting on right now, and unfortunately where we are with the virus and vaccinations here in Manitoba. But yes, on behalf of everyone at Winnipeg Sports Talk, go get them, Goldeyes. We'll be waiting for you at the ballpark whenever you're able to get back here. One more baseball thing we've got to get to, Reem. By the way, hell of a matchup tonight. Jays are opening a series up against the Boston Red Sox. You got Rodriguez on the hill for Boston, and the big Korean, my guy, Hyunjin Ryu, on the hill for the Blue Jays. But, Remo, we've got to talk about Shohei Ohtani. I know I've mentioned Ohtani before on this program, and I always like to tweet about him when he's doing something special. But there he was last night, a guy that has been so dominant on the mound, hitting his major league leading 13th home run last night for the Angels. And, dude, this wasn't just a bomb. This was a 480-foot blast that he hit, and he's a tall guy, at about eye level. I mean, this thing was on the edge of his batting helmet when he took it over. I mean, this guy truly is a unicorn of all sports. What he's doing nightly it's just amazing, and sometimes it defies description considering how unique what he's doing right now is in professional baseball.
Yeah, every single person who follows any type of sport should know about Shohei Ohtani and what he's doing in terms of with the bat, as you said, leading the league in home runs. But in terms of ERA, he's got a 2.10 ERA, same as, all-star pitcher Max Scherzer. So
He's getting no run support right now.
and
If he doesn't do it himself.
his 126 opponent batting average, lowest in baseball. So I think we need to sit back, appreciate what we're watching here. More people need to be talking about Shohei Ohtani, but it's really sad that two players, Ohtani, who's doing things that we haven't seen in 100 years, and Mike Trout, who's been the best player in baseball for, I don't know, at least the last 5 years. These guys can't get a sniff of the playoffs. They can't have any team success, and I think that might be part of it. But I think you do need to sit back and appreciate what we're watching because it hasn't been done for a long time. And I don't know, maybe we'll see more guys who dual threat players in MLB, or maybe not, because that just shows you how rare that this is. A guy you can
since Babe Ruth, has anyone done anything close to what Ohtani's doing right now in the major leagues? I couldn't give you a name.
I don't know. I can't. It's hard to say. And again, very, very tough. And what he's doing too is kind of putting a wrench in everyone's fantasy plans. Some sites are like, okay, you can either have him. There's two Ohtanis, the pitcher Ohtani and the hitter Ohtani. And another one's okay, you can put him in as a hitter or a pitcher, but you can't get both of his stats because sometimes he does both. And again,
absolutely,
a pitcher hasn't, an American League pitcher hasn't bat for himself in years and forever.
Well, and get this, two starts ago, it was time for him to leave the mound. Well, he didn't go to the dugout. He went out to right field.
Yeah.
And they didn't want to lose his bat in the lineup, so he literally moves in. It reminds me sort of like Little League, where, your best athlete was pitching for a little bit, then he leaves, but you need to have him in the game, so you move him to shortstop or whatever, and you flip the guy in. That's literally what Joe Madden's doing right now at the major league level with the pitcher that might also be his second best hitter.
Yeah, and that home run you mentioned yesterday was up his eyes. And there's pictures of home runs he's hit this year. He's hit one, that's above the strike zone. He's hit one that's way down in the zone. He's golfed out of there. Every day it's something with him. I mean, he's pitching the fastest pitches, and the exit velocity on his hits is the fastest exit velocity. It's crazy. So you need to marvel at this more, talk about it. He needs to be more known because my brother mentioned something to me. He's called it the wife test. Has your wife heard of this player? And the answer for Ohtani is no, and MLB needs to do a better job at making sure everyone is seeing what this guy's been doing.
Yeah, he is the unicorn, my friends. If you haven't watched Shohei Ohtani, do yourself a favor, tune in, and it doesn't have to be just when he's pitching, because he's usually raking as well when on his off days when he's not starting. All right, Rimmel, let's get to these cool bet lines for today. 4 games in the NHL today, 1 appetizer, and 3 playoff games. Do you want to spend any time? Do you have a lean on Calgary at Vancouver this afternoon? That's a 3 o'clock puck drop. Calgary minus 120, Vancouver plus 103. I know there's a lot of people in chat going like, why the hell would anyone care about this game? Hey, speak for yourself. Some of us need a few points from Quinn Hughes to win a full season, regular season draft. And I, for one, am very happy we're maintaining the integrity of the schedule and making sure that Calgary and Vancouver play these games.
Yeah, if you're if you're in a season-long fantasy, of course you're interested. Someone said in chat, who's going to care? I said, people who do gambling and fantasy. I was going to say just bet the underdog, but it sounds like it's pretty close to a pick 'em there. So... but yeah, if you need Quinn Hughes to score how many points, Huss?
4 points, 2 games.
I think it's doable. You could get 2 and 2.
He had 3 in the last game and almost scored in overtime, which would have been 4, which would have been really nice. I don't think either of these teams are really going to be bringing it the A game. There'll be some younger players that get a chance to play, which will be great for them. Although, man, can you imagine making your NHL debut in an empty building in a matinee game, in a regular season game when the playoffs have already started? You want to talk about anticlimactic setting for finally reaching your ultimate dream of playing in the best league in the world.
Hey, I think you'll take it because don't you get that paycheck too for being in the NHL? So
check that, that never gets old.
So when you get called up, you get a bit of a bump. So I think not ideal for any player who's made their debut, but doesn't mean it's not the NHL. You've reached a lifelong goal of playing a game, so good for them. Oh, was that your Ken Weeb moment?
That was a little bit of a Ken Weeb because I'm just looking at these lines, and the Panthers, who Like earlier today, I think Dusty and I did the Lock Shop live at 11:30 our time. The Panthers were plus 115.
Yeah.
The Panthers are now favored in this
What?
game. It just moved again. Like when I opened it, it was Lightning minus 105, Panthers minus 108. Now the Panthers are minus 111, and Tampa's just about even money at minus 102. Quite surprised of a movement like that. In fact, it sort of reminds me of the line movement in the Jets Oilers series. Not really sure where it's coming from. But yeah, the Panthers, who were plus 115 3 hours ago, are obviously getting a lot of bets on them right now because the Panthers are minus 111 favorites over the Tampa Bay Lightning.
So no one got fired. You know, with that type of reaction, I thought I was expecting something big, but no, just like a team that was an underdog is now a favorite.
Yeah, exactly. I've just been paying quite attention.
I guess that's
to it.
the life of Hustler there. That's what's
These
what's
are
moving the needle for you.
Exactly. A line movement in the Battle of Florida for
did you
tonight.
see this line move? Oh man! I mean, your reaction. I thought maybe like Ehlers or Dubois was going to be in, and we did have people in chat during that. Showed it to Sebastian. I know you gave him a call out. He gave us a super chat. He's like, "What's going on?" And then I told him, Ehlers, Dubois, Ken Weeb said they were doubtful. It seems like they're not going to play game one. Kopp, Stasny, they're going to be in. And there was another chatter who was like, what? It was like, these guys are injured? We're screwed. And people were having flashbacks to last year's playoffs when Scheifele and Laine went down in game one, and that was kind of it. I don't think we're in that type of situation now where it's over before it started. But not ideal having those guys out.
No doubt about it. And again, nothing's for sure. But when Paul Maurice says there'll be game time decisions, well, actually probably game time announcements, I think you can take that as highly unlikely that we'll see either of those players. And again, we haven't even seen Dubois on the ice since the game on Friday night, which is really concerning because I think despite his struggles, people around here were really expecting to see the best of Pierre-Luc Dubois come the playoffs, much like he did in dominating the Toronto Maple Leafs a couple years ago. Islanders at Pittsburgh tonight. Pittsburgh minus 128. Islanders plus 113. I know I asked this to Whyno, and he said not as much as Florida, but I kind of feel like this is a must-win for the Pittsburgh Penguins, considering they got swept the last time they played the Islanders. They lost a heartbreaker in OT. They lose the first two games at home and then have to go to Long Island, where the Islanders, despite their recent skid, were one of the best home teams in the NHL. Not really the path to winning a best-of-7 series. To me, this is a must-win game for the Pittsburgh Penguins tonight.
Yeah, and we're hearing of getting Malkin. He's still hurt, so that's a guy they're going to need. He kind of tanked my fantasy team with that injury, but I mean, health for him for the last couple seasons has definitely been a concern, and that's a guy that they're going to need if they want to get past the Islanders. We'll wait and see how it goes for Pittsburgh tonight. They're kind of been going all in, making all these deals, trading futures for picks. So, to go out, against the Islanders in round one would definitely be a disappointment. But as Whyno said, he almost didn't pick them for the playoffs because of their goaltending situation. I think I was reading earlier, sounds like DeSmith will be backing up. So, but they're going to need a big goalie performance from Yari.
Main event tonight, and man, this is a beauty. 9 p.m. game. Wild at Golden Knights. 1-0 OT win on the road for Minnesota in game number one. Cam Talbot with, I believe, 42 saves in the shutout. Important game for Vegas. I'm not sure I would say that this is must win. But, man, if Minnesota could win this game, Reem, you want to talk about making a statement into the playoffs at the beginning of a series. Holding a 2-0 lead going home would be an imposing lead in the series for the team from Minnesota.
Yeah, I was reading Jesse Granger in The Athletic, and he was saying for Vegas, game one was about the worst that it could have gone for them. You remember last year in the playoffs, I remember they went up against the Canucks and Thatcher Demko, and they just couldn't find a way to score at all. And it was just a rough go for Vegas. And some of those same traits from last year's playoffs where they were, so highly favored and went out, earlier than they would have liked, were kind of similar. They couldn't score against Cam Talbot, and they've had all these, offensive players, Mark Stone, and I know Pacioretty's hurt, but Marchessault, Carlson. They need these guys to step up and put some pucks in the back of the net. Minnesota is a very good team. They have Kaprizov, who's hustling on both sides of the puck. So if Minnesota goes up 2-0, and they were my dark horse Stanley Cup pick. I don't think I picked them to win on my bracket, but I mean that's a tough road for them. Again, I've been saying this for the last 2 weeks here, going through Vegas and Colorado. But I think Minnesota definitely they're capable. They've played them a lot in the regular season and beaten them in the regular season. So why couldn't they do it in the playoffs here? So I'm excited for that game. The late game last night was awesome. Colorado, St. Louis. We saw some great goaltending from both sides. I think we'll have another great one as the main event, or late night game, whichever one you consider, because we got the appetizer, the regular season game, before the postseason games.
Well, that you could make an argument not for Vancouver, Calgary as the main event tonight, but maybe Tampa, Florida. And again, that one is right around a pick. I'm Tampa right now -111. My pick, though, I've just put it in while speaking. I'm going big, looking for a big win tonight. Vegas -1.5 goals, +169. Wow. I know I don't normally throw those picks out, but I think we see it. It's a nice number. There's no doubt about it. Looking for Vegas, so we'll see how that goes. +169. Again, I'll tweet out the lines at Sports Talk WPG. If you're not following us on Twitter already, please do give us a follow. We will get that done. And Remo, we'll also let people know that are with us right now to, if they haven't already followed us on Instagram, to do that at Sports Talk WPG, same address, because Nick from DQ has very generously given us some cakes to give away. And I think what we'll do is we'll set up a post on the Instagram for people to pop on. So just make sure you're following our account. Go on there. We'll have a post for this. You'll be able to go in, maybe tag a friend that should give us a follow. We'll put the instructions in there, and then tomorrow on the program, we'll announce who our winner is for our Game 1 Jets cake from DQ Nick.
I'll have to get Nick to send me a picture of one of those beautiful-looking cakes, and then we'll put it up. So we'll talk with Nick. Stay tuned. Follow us on Sports Talk WPG on Instagram. We'll have the instructions. So that'll be fun to do. But we talked yesterday at the end of the show. We're like, which is the underdog that's going to upset tonight? And I have said Washington was probably the most likely. They were about to, but then Boston, with the late tying goal, then the overtime goal, all the favorites won. If Tampa's now an underdog, I guess you'd have to pick Tampa.
Yeah, definitely tonight. And that one is essentially almost like a pick 'em right now. Let me ask you this: were you surprised that Laviolette didn't challenge the tying goal? McAvoy skates right into the crease, dives over, and knees Anderson in the head. Now, he was being chased by a guy who followed him in, who also hit Anderson. But the first point of contact was McAvoy's knee to Anderson's head, moved him over, and then Taylor's there for the tap-in. It wasn't so clear, and I think what he was really worried about, there was 2.5 minutes left in the game. If you are wrong on the challenge, you don't get it. You give up a power play, and you could potentially lose right away, so they didn't do that. But to be honest with you, I thought that was a very borderline goal. And admittedly, I hate Boston. I was very choked when Brad Marchand scored. But to me, that was not the clean goal that they certainly seemed to say it was on the broadcast.
Yeah, I was watching the game, and you see the ref in the behind the net pointing down, and I'm like, how can you even see what's going on there? And maybe it's kind of BS that if you lose that challenge in the playoff game in the dying 2 minutes, you'd have to go on a penalty kill. So I think the risk reward there, not great unless you were so sure. And I think it was impossible to see what was going on under those pile of bodies. So I kind of understand that, because if you give up a power play, and so you still had a chance. So when you can go into overtime, to lose that quickly. That's a crushing one for Washington. They could have gone up 2-0 as the underdog. I know they were at at home yesterday, but we'll wait and see how that one goes. That was a tough way to go. So I don't blame him, but I don't know. Maybe can they put in a rule? Hey, if it's in the last 5 minutes of the third period in a playoff game, if you challenge, you don't lose.
Well,
a timeout.
either that, or have like the
booth?
NFL's equivalent of the
Yeah,
booth review.
why
I mean,
don't-
if
do they
something
not-
was really close, they should say, you know what, we're going to look at this and we'll let you know what it is. And there have been some initiated. That wasn't the case
They
last
used to
night.
do that.
Yeah. So anyways.
2.5 minutes. Is that not within the threshold of all right? Let's go to a booth review. Is that not? What's the What's the threshold?
Yeah.
Is there one, or is it
when
always the coach's responsibility? And those are that's what I don't like. You're leaving it up to the coach. It should be like it should be on the refs to get the call right. But
Yeah,
you look
but at the
that-
same time, I do like the penalty if for unsuccessful challenge.
Well,
Because if we remember, it got abused so badly by the coaches, they'd be like, well, I could use a 30-second timeout, or I could just challenge something where they at least have to go and spend
Yes.
2 to 3 minutes looking at it. They'll do that all day long. And I mean, the loss of the timeout wasn't a big enough factor for them not to do it all the time. So they went to this, and I don't know. I'm fine with this, but we do understand in that particular situation, that was a very difficult choice for Laviolette to make or not make. He opted not to because I think the threat of not getting it correct and giving up that late power play was just too much for him to stomach.
Yeah, and I think some of these reviews, I mean, you watch that thing a million times yesterday, and you're like, you still have, it could go one way or the other, and you know, just stick with the ref's call on the ice so we don't have. And I agree with you. It was the stupidest when they would just like challenge stuff. It seemed like they were doing it just for the sake of challenging it before, and these offside ones are also the dumbest. So,
God,
this is that's what is that, episode 1 of playoff reviews and playoff officiating? I'm sure it won't be the last one.
Yeah, one of 30 consecutive days where we talk about some sketchy call. Hey, I see the sheriff himself, Gregory Liverpool, and I know Greg was popping in the chat. I meant to say hi earlier. Greg seems to be doing well after getting his shot yesterday. Many of the regulars. Wayne Jones, the president of the Norwegian WST contingent, here as well. Funky but Chunky's there. Jets 280. Chuck, Winnipeg, Travis. Big crew today here for us on Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. And I got to tell you, Reeb, this is going to be a heck of a night of playoff hockey to get into. And heck, you know, even at the top of the hour, if you're really jonesing to watch something, maybe hit the cool bet, put a little sprinkle on the Flames or Canucks, and that will carry you over until we get going with a couple great games early. Pittsburgh Islanders, Tampa, Florida, and then finish it off with Vegas and the Minnesota Wild.
Yeah, I got a couple games there. Also some great baseball as well. Goldeyes in action. Blue Jays continuing on. Or no, are they? Yeah, they're playing the Red Sox. So that's a big series. Hyun-Jin Ryu tonight, and that's at 6:30. So yeah, this is that time of year, Huss. A lot of games. Basketball playoffs starting soon too. Normally
play-in game.
Yeah.
Lakers and Warriors in the play-in game.
Is it one game play-in?
Well, it's the 7-8 teams play. Whoever wins that game is the 7th seed. And if you
Lakers
lose,
are in the play-in game?
yes,
Shows
against
you
the
how
Warriors.
close I've been paying attention. I'm more into. I can tell you any player's top shot price, but as far as like actual standings, I have no idea.
NBA prospector Michael Remis.
Yeah.
But yeah. So and then the 9 and 10 teams play, and the winner of that plays the loser of the 7-8. And I think they have to win 2 games if they want to actually jump those teams and go forward.
I have no idea how this play in NBA works. And
if I would have told you that the Jazz and the Suns were the top 2 teams in the West standings, and the Lakers and Warriors were the 2 teams in the playoff game, you'd probably think, wait a second, maybe you're mixing those up. Are we sure it's not Phoenix and Utah in the play-in game and the Warriors and the Lakers? But no, that is the NBA this year. Unfortunately, no Raptors in the playoffs.
Don't get me wrong. I was setting my fantasy lineup. I was trying to make a last-minute dash for the top 4 in my season-long basketball league. I just never looked at the standing. Like I was putting in. I had Embiid. I had Trae Young on my team. I just never looked at the standings.
Ultimate fantasy guy, Michael Remis.
A fantasy top shot NBA fan. As far as the actual standings, I'm going to be on here admitting that I did not know. I mean, I know Curry's been tearing it up, and I've seen some LeBron stuff going on, but I did not know. I know Devin Booker. I got his top shot, so I'm hoping for a big Suns push.
He's had a great one, but split. Huss has good wheels. Well, I certainly don't now, and even before my injury at the end of last year, I wouldn't say I was synonymous with cat-like quickness or being that fleet of foot. I will own that. I will own that. Travis, is there a WST DraftKings for the PGA Championship? Yes, I will be making it as soon as we're off the air. I will put it out. If you're in our Winnipeg Sports Talk DraftKings group, and I don't know whether you're going to get the invites, or you're going to have to look or have to go to the group and see. It's been a major source of frustration for Remis and myself over the last few months. But yes, I will make it. I'll make a 40-person. So get in there in the next half hour. Just grab your spot and get it done beforehand. And if you haven't played DraftKings before, but you want to, send me a tweet at Hustlerama with your DraftKings handle, and I'll make sure you get an invite. Anything else you want to hit on, Reem, before we shut down? I will mention 15 minutes or so. Check my Twitter at Hustlerama. I'll be going live with Pat Gregoire. We're going to do some prop bet picks for Cool Bet for the 2 Canadian series, Jets Oilers and Leafs Habs.
Yeah, I don't know. Do I want to get into this? Some people were criticizing the Jets for not putting out any pro-vaccine statements or any of their players. But
do you?
They did put out a video with GM Cheveldayoff saying, let's shut out COVID and telling people to get vaccinated because we do want to see full buildings. And I'm kind of following the concert. I've been holding on to the concert scene. I've been holding on these Rage Against the Machine tickets for over a year now, and they're coming here next year. But Lollapalooza, was announced, and they're having, their thing. But you're going to have to show either a, proof of, full vaccination, 2 shots, or proof of a clean, negative COVID test within 24 hours. So it is kind of interesting. How are these large venues going to manage all of this going forward? And, we've talked about in the U.S., how it's going to be, how it's going with the fans there. So I think this is just something, as far as a business side, we'll be keeping an eye on going forward. But I'll give a shout out to the Jets for putting out that video.
Well, as a non-anti-vaxxer, I'm fine with professional teams, entertainment people. If you want to get people to your venue and you want to ensure that they've got it, go for it. I mean, I think that's a positive development. And I think that'll probably help some more people that may have been on the fence say, you know what, okay, I'm going to do it, and that'll be better for everybody.
Yeah, I think maybe, for those final stragglers who don't get it, we'll have, offer some free stuff, right? Like the Mets and Yankees giving free tickets.
Well, as I said, we may do our own Winnipeg Sports Talk pop-up Vax party along with Little Brown Jug, and you can go in, get your shot. We'll have an ice cold 1919 waiting for you, and then you can go wait 2 weeks before it actually officially works, and then get a second shot, and then we'll do it all again with an LPJ, a craft beer corner at the ballpark or at the stadium or whatnot. All right, man, great show today. Thanks as always to our sponsors: Not Autocorp, Boston Pizza, Royal Sports, Nick and Nicky DQ Group, Little Brown Jug Brewing, Summer Lager, just saying, might go well tonight. It's hot outside. And Assiniboia Downs opening day next Monday. Breezy Bend Country Club, our great sponsors. Can't wait for the PGA Championship this week. Look for your DraftKings invite a little bit later on this afternoon. Coolbet.com, and of course, Aikens Lake Wilderness Lodge. Tomorrow, it's game day, folks. We will be all over Jets Oilers. Mike McIntyre will join us from the Winnipeg Free Press to set up game number 1. We'll have the latest on the lineup and the rest of the Stanley Cup playoffs and much more. Thanks to everyone that joined us live on YouTube. Thank you to everyone listening on the podcast. Keep on spreading the word on Winnipeg Sports Talk. We appreciate the support. And don't forget, get to our Instagram at Sports Talk WPG. We'll have a post along with our folks at Dairy Queen. Follow the instructions. We'll announce a winner tomorrow. For Michael Remis, I'm Andrew Paterson. Check me out on the Cool Bet feed in about 10 minutes. Thanks for doing this today. We'll see you tomorrow for game day, playoff style, on Winnipeg Sports Talk.
Oh, my God. Oh! Shut it down. Let's go home.
Thanks for tuning in to Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. Make sure to subscribe on YouTube and your favorite podcast feed at winnipegsportstalk.com.